Welcome to this lecture about first language acquisition from the course of General Linguistics for the fourth year students of the Islamic University College Department of English. This is Bاسم Jubir, the lecturer of the course. Let's start with the introduction about first language acquisition. Of course, acquiring a first language is an amazing process for several reasons. First and foremost, every language is a complex system. We cannot say that language is easy to acquire or is easy to be learned. Language is a very complex and complicated system. It needs days and nights to be learned. However, how come at the age of 5 the child acquires most of this complicated system of grammar? How come the child would acquire the syntactic, phonological, morphological, and semantic rules of such a complicated system called language? How can this child join sentences, complex sentences? And how can this child ask questions? How can you use appropriate pronouns? How can to negate sentences? How to form relative clauses? All these cannot be said that human beings acquire language through knowledge or through community or through socialization without anything pre-wired. Children are born with predispositions of language, with parameters of language, and triggering their language or their specific language, for example, the Arabic language or the English language, the French, the Portuguese, the Italian, and so on and so forth. All these languages are only triggered through what is called interaction. So, what makes language acquired? I mean, what are the requirements for a language to be acquired by children? Well, there are two basic requirements for a child to be to acquire the language. Number 1, interaction. Number 2, physical capability. Interaction. There must be a kind of interaction among the language speakers, because without interaction, it will be like the case of Jenny. There won't be any cultural transmission or any knowledge regarding language to be transformed from one generation to another. So the experiment of Jenny, who is a girl and who was in prison and kept away from the society at the moment she was born until the age of 15, which is the age of puberty, and after exposing her to the society to be as a speaker of particular language, she only developed a very limited set of sentences, of linguistic items. Her language was very simple. And she kept so on this situation even after her 30s. At the age of 30, she uses a very simple language. This means that without interaction, without socialization in terms of language, there will not be any kind of language acquirement, language acquisition. Number 2, the child must be physically capable. All the organs of speech should be safe and sound, should be ready to acquire language. The child should be able to speak and should be able to hear. And hearing, speaking, and interaction are all interwoven, interrelated together. They're related one to another. We cannot speak if we cannot understand, if we cannot hear. We cannot hear unless we can speak. And we cannot speak and hear unless we can interact. So these are the only 2 requirements for acquiring language. Now, when does the child acquire language? Is there any specific age? Yes, there is. All normal children develop language at roughly the same time, along the same schedule, the same time and the same periods, the same ages. And this biological schedule is related to the maturation of the infant's brain to cope with the linguistic input. So this age could be at the between the 7th, 8th, and 9th age of the child, which is in the pregnancy, during the pregnancy period. There will be a kind of maturation for the brain. So when children start acquiring language, they would only acquire what is regular in language. There is no what is called irregular rules or irregularities. They would only acquire language regularities. Now let's start with the first phase. Or before starting with the first phase, let's talk about the type of language which is used by adult people towards children. This type of language is called caregiver language or caregiver speech. It is a type of simplified speech adopted by someone who spends time interacting with a child, and it is called caregiver speech. Sometimes the mother who's always babysitting the child. Now, this caregiver speech is characterized by several characteristics which distinguishes this type of language from other types. Let's count them one by one. Number 1, it is characterized by frequent use of questions. Number 2, simplified lexicon. When talking to children, when talking to any child, we cannot use the complicated set of lexemes in our minds. We use only the ones that the child knows, so that we can make the channel of interaction. Number 3, phonological reduction. We always say, oh baby, oh doggy, oh eat this cookie, and so on and so forth. And this kind of phonological reduction is easier to the child than the complete phonological utterance of any given word. 4, higher pitch, extra loudness. The extra loudness is necessary for the child, because the children might not fully understand what is going on or what is being said. So we need, as caregiver speakers, we need to keep what we say loud and louder, louder and louder. 5. Stress intonation. We always talk to children using the stress intonation, so that it could be musical and amazing, rather than normal and formal. 6. Simple sentences. Of course, we wouldn't think of complex sentences when talking to children. And 7. The use of repetition. A lot of repetition are used in the caregiver speech. Again, caregiver speech is also called motherese, because, as you said, the mother is always babysitting her child, so she always interacts with her children. Now, if you take a look at this example, which should be pictured, because without pictures we cannot represent it very well. However, the mother says, "Look." Child touches the pictures. Mother, "What are those?" Child vocalizes a babble string and smiles, which gives something that I understand these are pictures. Mother, "Yes, there are rabbits." Child vocalizes and smiles again. And mother laughs, "Yes, rabbits." It looks like that the mother and the child has some code of communication. Now let's start with the first stage of language acquisition, which is the cooing. The first stage is called cooing. A few weeks. Cooing and gurgling, sometimes babbling, sometimes gawling, sometimes in other languages might use other terms. It depends on the language that the child starts with. Cooing and gurgling, playing with sounds, their abilities are constrained by psychological limitations. They seem to be discovering phonemes at this point, distinguishing this phoneme from that phoneme, this phoneme from that, producing sequences of vowel-like sounds, high vowels, low vowels, back, front, and so on and so forth, e, u, g, k, etc. At the age of 5 months, they could distinguish between a and e, and the syllables ba and ga, ma. So their perception skills are good and mature at this point. At the stage of babbling, which is more advanced stage than cooing, different vowels and consonants, ba, 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 and ga, 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 mama, and so on, are acquired. And the age of this stage starts from 9, 10, 11, up to 12 months. The intonation patterns, combination of phonemes, nasal sounds, all these phonemes start to be acquired. And late stage, the complex syllable combination, ma, da, ga, complex syllable combinations, ma, da, ga, ba, appear. Even the deaf children can babble. They can use their own hands. They can use their own vocalizations. The most common cross-linguistic sounds and patterns babbled the most, but later on they babble less common sounds. The next stage is the one-word stage, which starts at the age 12 up to 18 months. At this stage, the utterances can be recognized. However, it could be one utterance at a time. Single terms are uttered for every object. For example, if the child wants to ask for milk, then you would say only milk. For a cookie, you wouldn't say I want cookie, only cookie. For cat, you wouldn't say I want a cat, cup, and so on. And this is going to be pronounced like the childish speech, like the child could not sometimes pronounce K. The child would pronounce T instead. Instead of saying cup, it would say top, and so on and so forth. And at the same stage, there will be holophrasing. Instead of saying what's that, it would say wassa. For you, fear, and so on and so forth. Yes. Next stage, which is the two-word stage. At this stage, the language acquisition gets more advanced, more vocabulary, more rules, more context, and at the age of this two-word stage is the 2 years old. And at this exact age, children start to contextualize, which means they start to acquire what is called communicative competence or pragmatic competence, in addition to linguistic competence. Adults behave as if communication is taking place, while the child does not only produce a speech, but receives feedback confirming that the utterance worked as a contribution to the interaction. And an impressive fact is that by this age, whether the child is producing 200 or 300 words, he or she will be capable of understanding 5 times as many. So if 200 words, then he would understand 1,000 words. 300 words, he would understand 1,500 words. And the telegraphic speech, which starts at 2.5 years, and at this age, the child produces multiple word speech. The child has already developed sentence building capacity and can get the word order correct. Cat drink milk, daddy go bye-bye. However, a number of grammatical inflections, grammatical function words cannot be present, although they start to appear. Simple presuppositions are also used. Vocabulary is expanding rapidly. And at the 3 years, vocabulary has grown more, better pronunciation, better use of language, and so on and so forth. Now, how the acquisition process works? The child doesn't acquire the language by imitating adults, no, but by trying out constructions and testing them against what the adult people say. So first, the child says, my teacher holded the baby rabbit and we patted them. While the mother, did you say your teacher held the baby rabbit? the child, yes, she holded the baby rabbit, and so on and so forth, until the child concludes that hold is the past of hold is held, not holded as he said. Okay, and the same situation with go. It is went, the past of go, not good. Men, not men's. Women, not women's, and so on and so forth. So developing morphology, again, there will be a kind of overgeneralization, which is the child applies the regular rule on irregular morphological constructions, and he would the child would put s of the plural to irregular pluralized words such as foot. He would say foots instead of feet, man's instead of man, and so on and so forth. Developing syntax, the development of the two syntactic structures within 3 stages each. Developing questions has 3 stages, substages, and for developing negatives, again has 3 stages. Let's start with the questions. There are 3 stages in developing questions. The first stage is in only inserting where, who, which, what, and so on, all the question words, beginning of an expression with rising intonation, like sitcha, where horse go. The second stage is more complex expression with some modifications. Why are you smiling? You want to eat? And so on. While the third stage takes the inversion of the subject and verb. Instead of you will help me, it will be will you help me? What did I do? Which is a complete sentence, and language is acquired here. Regarding the negatives, again 3 substages. Stage 1, putting no, not and no at the beginning of the sentence. No teddy bear, no sit here. At stage 2, which says don't and can't appear, but still no and not before verbs. It doesn't follow the syntactic order of the language in question. He no bite you, I don't want it, and so on. Stage 3, didn't and won't appear, and at the right place, the right position. I didn't cut it. She won't go. Okay? However, it needs some modification. While developing semantics, during the 2-word stage, children use their limited vocabulary to refer to a large number of unrelated objects. A large number of unrelated objects. This is called overextension. The meaning of a word on the basis of similarities of shape, sound, and size is extended on other subjects. For example, use ball to refer to an apple, and egg, a grape, and a ball. This is followed by a gradual process of narrowing down. Yes. Antonymous relations are acquired later, of course, and the distinction between more, less, before, after seem to be later acquisition. So the most important part of acquisition is acquiring semantics of a given language, because it has so many variations, so many words, complex system of vocabulary, and so on and so forth. This is only an introduction to first language acquisition. It has so many branches and sub-branches. We only scratched the surface of this field of linguistics as introductory part to the students. I would recommend to study questions because they are so important. That's all for me. Thank you very much.